Yo guys, what is up? And here we are coming out with another video of The Only Thing to Fear. Dun dun dun! We're in chapter 14, which is gonna get really exciting! I'm so excited. So, school has started, which means that to get videos out, it will be a lot harder. So, videos coming out every week may not always be the choice. And, of course, it also may be that I make a ton of video on one day, and then a ton of videos on one day, and then I schedule them out. So, you're not always hearing live things. Just so you know. Unless you're watching it the first day. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, that is about it. Make sure to subscribe. If you are getting bored already, just subscribe and then you can leave, because I have no problem with that, because I do that all the time on YouTube. Let's see. And I think, without further ado, let's get into the book. And this is chapter 14 of The Only Thing to Fear by Caroline Tung Richmond. Chapter 14. At Bastian's instance, they headed back to the barn, even though Zara didn't want to leave her uncle's side just yet. But Bastian wouldn't take no for an answer. Once they entered the musty old building, she shut the doors behind them, although shafts of sunlight filtered through the gaps of the wooden slats. I don't know. The earthy smell of the hay filled both of their noses, followed by the sharp scent of gasoline. A tired Chevy truck sat in one corner, left over from Zara's grandfather and now used for scrap. "What's this all about?" Zara said. The two-story barn towered over her and above both her and Bastian, and her question bounced from wall to wall. "I thought you could try to summon your second power." Fear pricked along the back of her neck. "You saw what happened to my uncle." "I can sit in that old car. If the lightning gets close to me, I should be safe." "Should be safe? What if I set the whole barn on fire?" "I can't think of anywhere else we can go. Not if you want to hide from the Nazis." "We'll be fine." He flashed her a grin, the type of grin that lit up his entire face, making him look even more handsome than he did at the academy. Ugh, honestly, it's my opinion. Zara's gaze plunged to her shoes. She couldn't even think such a thing. Not with her uncle lying sick in bed, because of her and her new power. And when she did start thinking Bastian was handsome, she had to stop those thoughts at once. Bastian may not be a Nazi, but he was still a German. Besides, he would never, ever think the same thing about someone like her. But then, she thought about last night, how Bastian had helped her home. His arm had pulled her so close to him, lingering there even when she could limp on her own. And he hadn't told her that he admired her? And hadn't he told her that he admired her? You're being ridiculous, Zara thought. She needed to concentrate on controlling her new power and helping her uncle get better. Bastian hopped into the ancient truck and tucked his backpack by his feet. "You can start whenever you're ready." "What exactly am I supposed to do?" Zara said. "How do you summon the wind?" "Try that with lightning." Easier said than done, Zara thought. Both Bastian and Uncle Red kept telling her to control this new ability of hers, but they had no idea exactly how she was supposed to do that. But she had to try for her uncle's sake. She released a long breath and stared at her hands, at the spot on her palms where the lightning had formed the night before. Silently, she called for a bolt of electricity, like she always did with the wind. Nothing. Zara tried again, then again, and another half-dozen times, but she only managed to make her hands boiling hot. After the 8th attempt, she was tempted to kick over an empty milk pail, frustrated at what she was doing wrong. The air had always been easily manipulated, even when she first manifested. It heeded her call even when she was 7 years old, so eager to please her. But this lightning was another thing entirely, headstrong, pig-headed. It may have poured out of her hands the night before, but now she couldn't muster a thing. "You have to be patient." "That's all," Bastian called out. "I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's being so stubborn." Discouraged, Zara squeezed her hands close, not meeting Bastian's gaze. He probably thought he was wasting his time with her. "I'm sorry. You probably want to go home and see your mom, don't you?" "I'll see her later tonight. I don't mind staying." His shyness had crept back in, pulling his shoulders forward. "Unless you'd rather try alone." "No, it's not that. I only figured you'd be bored." "Bored? You're a dual anomaly, Zara. I'm not bored in the least." He had said her name again. Not girl, not Mischling, just Zara. A slight smile tugged at her mouth. "I have an idea." Have you tried harnessing a spark of electricity rather than a bolt of lightning? What do you mean? Well, a spark would be easier to create than a full-grown lightning bolt, wouldn't it? Perhaps you should start small and build up from there. Zara rolled the idea through her head. Bastion had a point. When she conjured the wind, she usually did what he said, starting with a breeze and strengthening it until it formed a tornado or a gust of wind. It could be off base, Bastion admitted. Actually, I think you're onto something. The smile of his returned. Should we give it a try then? While Bastion climbed back into the rusted truck, Zara studied her hands. Immediately, a breeze picked around her wrists, eager her to follow her orders, but she brushed it off. Charge, she thought. Nothing again. Lips pursed. She focused on the air resting along the skin of her palms. She only needed a spark. That was it, a tiny burst of light. Charge! There, a tug at her palm. She urged the air to charge up like a battery, begging for it until her temples ached. A circle of heat fanned over her hand. Then she felt it, a hum, a seed of lightning, a tiny ball of particles burning for release. With everything she had, Zara drew the seed toward her. Charge! Zara's lips parted at what she saw. There it was, a pebble bouncing on her hand. Bastion, she gasped. I can see it. Can you try to make it larger? Could she? Zara focused on her palm. Multiply, she thought, concentrating on every one of her cells on this lone command. The seed quivered as its white-hot tentacle stretched farther. Excitement threaded through Zara's veins, the same feeling she had when she first summoned a gust of wind. The lightning dwindled to nothing. But Zara didn't care. She laughed, almost giddy. That was excellent! Bastion leapt out of the cab and reached her in 4 easy strides. He threw an arm around her shoulder. You'll be conjuring lightning within a week. I'm sure of it. You help too, Zara grinned. A little bit. Oh, only a little? He grinned back. His arm remained around her. Zara's nose filled with the scent of him, soap and sage. She stepped back, scolding herself for her silly thoughts. And Bastion's arm swiftly drooped around her, against his side. He fidgeted with the end of his tie, as if he was embarrassed about something. And he didn't. And she lost my place. And she was the one who should be embarrassed. Should we try it again? She asked, trying to make the tension. He glanced at his leather watch and mumbled a quick sheesh. I can't. I've got to get going. I told my mother that I'd watch one of her shows with her after the news. Zara stilled. The news! Suddenly, it dawned on her. The evening news! The first Alliance attack on Camp Hammerstein. It happened right now. She'd forgotten about it between her new ability and her uncle's injury and Bastion discovering her powers. Is something wrong? Zara paused. She still hadn't completely revealed her ties to the Alliance to Bastion. If she told him about the attack, she would expose herself and Uncle Red. Her uncle's caution flared through her one more time, tightening with each breath. But she nudged it aside. She trusted Bastion. She was ready to admit that now. He had saved her from the soldiers last night, and he'd kept her power a secret from his father. Plus, he was here with her now, helping her harness this new ability of hers. If she couldn't trust Bastion, then who could she trust? She made her choice. We have to find a television. Right now, she urged. A television? Why? There's something we have to watch. I might have... Bastion retrieved his bag and pulled out a handheld radio vision screen. Would this work? Zara snatched the device from him, flipped it on, and twisted the knob until she reached channel 7. What do we have to watch? Bastion asked. This, look. Static crinkled on the screen, but Zara saw a cheering crowd through the fuzziness. There were hundreds of people in the throng, 400 or 500, and each one with a raised fist in the air while gunshots blasted over the phone's tiny speakers. Zara's heart marched proudly at the sight. She wondered how many people would watch this very broadcast tonight. Maybe even the Fuhrer would be one of them. This can't be Channel 7, Bastion's brow ceased. The news should be on this hour. Not tonight. The Alliance broke into the broadcast. They're attacking Camp Hammerstein. Surprise shone in Bastion's eyes. I visited there with my father once. I met some of the soldiers. His voice tapered off as suddenly the camera panned up to a gray-haired woman who held a megaphone in her hands. My fellow citizens, the woman cried, dressed in all black. The Revolutionary Alliance sends its greetings. That has to be Celia Fargate, Zara said, awed. This was the woman who had led the rebels for the last decade, and who had masterminded Operation Burning Eagle. She's the head of the Alliance. Bastian nodded, but said nothing, his gaze strapped onto the screen. The rebels whooped their approval at Fargate's words, and the camera swept over their faces, most of them so young that they couldn't be much older than Zara. Tonight, we celebrate an Alliance victory, Fargate cried. Camp Hammerstein now burns to ruins! The lens turned sharply to the right. Both Bastian and Zara sucked in their breaths. Behind the rebel crowd, Camp Hammerstein roared in bright orange flames, spreading over 5 main buildings and towards the tall trees that surrounded the property. The entire camp had crumbled to the ground, and thick plumes of smoke rose from its bones. They took it over, Zara whispered. The Alliance had actually taken the camp. The lens pointed back at Fargate. Bring me the Nazi dog, she shouted. Seconds later, 3 rebels dragged a Nazi soldier forward, his hands bound behind his back. Zara pointed at him. In front of me, I have a guard who has surrendered to the Alliance. A German coward. The crowd erupted, shouting German coward over and over again until he drowned out Fargate. Long seconds passed before they quieted. Then Fargate placed the megaphone in front of the frightened soldier's place. Renounce the Führer, she spat at him. Renounce the Empire. The soldier tried to speak, but he could only stutter a pitiful, please. The camera zeroed in on his ghost-pale cheeks. Renounce the Führer! Fargate shouted again. I renounce him, the soldier sobbed. He looked close to Bastian's age, perhaps a bit older, maybe 19 or 20. And the Empire, I renounce it too. Fargate nodded, looking quite pleased, but that didn't stop her from pulling a pistol from her holster. Zara stared at the gun, then at the soldier, then back again. She didn't know what was going on. Would Fargate shoot the soldier, even after he had surrendered? Fargate must have her reasons. Will she kill him? Bastian said, his eyes wide. On national television? But this is war. There are no rules, Zara thought. The Nazis had slaughtered thousands of rebels, even if they surrendered, even if they begged, even if they had children, like her mother. Think about your Opa. He was arrested by the Nazi soldiers like this one. Bastian reached for his dog tags that used to hang around his neck and nodded grimly. They turned the attention back to the screen. Mercy! As the soldier cried, I beg of you! Fargate racked the side and aimed the gun in his temple. Mercy? Yes, mercy! The soldier's eyes grew so wide that Zara could see the whites in them. He sobbed again. Mother. He was crying for his mother. Zara's heart cringed as he cried out again, but she reminded herself that he was a Nazi. He could have arrested men like her uncle or killed women like Miss Tally, and he could have done both with a grin on his face. She couldn't allow herself to feel a drop of sympathy for them. Did the Nazis show mercy when they bombed our cities? Fargate paced around the soldier, always keeping a gun in his head. Did the Nazis show us mercy when our children starved? When they destroyed America? Did they? She kicked him. Did they? The soldier sputtered. Coward, she growled. I surrender. What more must I? Fargate pulled the trigger. Blood spurted over her clothes, dotting the camera lens, and the dead soldier slumped to the ground. Bastian winced and turned away, but Zara kept her eyes on the screen, unable to look away. There will be no mercy for the Empire, Fargate shouted. The crowd's volume rose in great crescendo, and the same 3 words overtook the masses. Freedom or death! Freedom or death! Fargate joined in. Freedom or death! Fists rose in the air, pumping together as one. Freedom or death! Freedom or death! Join us, our fellow citizens, our fellow Americans, for the Alliance, for the... Her speech cut off abruptly. The camera jostled from left to right before it focused on the crowd breaking apart, running in all directions. A few of the rebels pointed above their heads, and the lens swung upward to show 3 large shadows moving across the darkened sky. They're sending in bombers, someone yelled. Fall back! Fall back! An ear-shattering blast exploded by the fence. Another explosion detonated near the camera, sending an awful bang into Zara's ears. The picture soon turned to static, then black. Zara went numb. She shook the device, silently begging for the feed to return, but it stayed blank. Bastian finally reached over and pried the machine from her fingers. The Nazis sent in bombers, Zara said, her voice lifeless. Were all the rebels dead? What about Garrison? He had said he was going to be at the attack. What happened to Fargate? Bastian didn't reply. He only placed a hand on her shoulders. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Zara cried. Garrison had sat in her living room, his face bright as he had laid out the Alliance's plan. But now it looked like this attack had turned into another Mission Metzger, and that made Zara's chest hurt. This should have been our big chance. Chance for what? Bastian said softly. To fight the Nazis, to get rid of them. He stepped back. It was only one raid. How would that get rid of them, unless there's something else? Zara nodded but didn't explain further. It didn't matter anymore. Now that the mission to Camp Hammerstein had collapsed, there would be no supplies to carry out the next attack on Fort Goring. There would be no march on New Berlin. We could find them, Bastian said. Zara glanced up at him, confused. We could find the Alliance. We could help them, couldn't we? The dodged look and it had returned to his eyes. I can treat the wounded. You could help them with their powers. There might not be much of an alliance left, she said. Didn't you see what happened? They wouldn't have sent all their forces for one mission. That's a simple rule of battle strategy. But they could probably use our help. Zara couldn't believe he was saying these things. And Bastian had told her dozens of times that he wanted to join the Alliance. But now he was talking about running away. She couldn't believe that she was the one hesitating. But she had to hesitate, for Uncle Red's sake. I can't leave until my uncle gets better, she told him. She wondered if she would be taking up Bastian's offer, if her uncle weren't sick. She'd been waiting her whole life for this opportunity. Now that it was here, would she be as brave as she thought she was? You're right, your uncle. The fire in Bastian's eyes receded. His shoulders slumped inward. My mother, too. We could still help the Alliance from Greenfield. We could gather information, find more recruits. Zara offered. Maybe they couldn't join the rebels right now, but they can make a difference here in her town. I think we could, Bastian's gaze searched her. Together, then? She nodded. Together. And that is chapter 14. See what I mean by it's exciting? So from now on, basically every single chapter, something big happens. So get ready. It's going to be really exciting, so make sure you guys stay with me and stay with the videos because it'll make it a lot more fun. Right? Because everyone likes fun. Okay, so I think that is about it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment down below, and I'll see you guys later.